as for how the current brackets, or 12-team playoff seeding, is currently looking, because we did have a little bit of change up with that Ohio State-Oregon game. So Texas stays at number 1, throttled Oklahoma after they kind of got it going after that first quarter. Number 2 is Oregon. They got the W over Ohio State. Give them the props. Even though I think Ohio State is better, we're going by the top 25. I think by the end of the year we'll probably have a much better look at that. Anyways, number 3, Miami. Doesn't really move, didn't really change, didn't really do anything. Iowa State is staying at 4. There you go. Big 12 representation. So that's your SEC, your Big 10, your ACC, and your Big 12 champions currently, or at least highest seeded out of those conferences currently. Number 5, Penn State. There you go. I would actually put Ohio State here because I don't know how you put Penn State over Ohio State this week. I don't get that. But hey, I'm not an AP and I don't vote. So there you go. Penn State is at number 5. Number 6, Ohio State. Georgia stays at 7. Number 8 stays Alabama. LSU is now at 9. Number 10 is Clemson. Number 11 is Tennessee. And number 12 wraps it up. Boise State stays there. So we are really close to seeing Notre Dame kind of get into here. And that's going to be the thing, is like Notre Dame is kind of knocking right here at number 12. They're sitting just outside of it. So it's going to be real easy for them to get into it if anybody in that lower kind of 11 kind of slip up and lose. It's going to be real easy to have that happen. Tennessee, Alabama is obviously going to play each other. If Tennessee beats Alabama this next weekend, is Alabama better than Notre Dame? Yes. Yes, they are. Will they be ranked higher than them? Maybe not in the AP, but if the playoff committee meets, they would put Alabama ahead of Notre Dame. That'd be my perspective. So here you go. This is how the 12-team playoff looks. All right, let's do the rundown. So the top 25, there was definitely a little bit of shakeup, not nearly as much as what happened last week, but we do have Texas still number 1. Oregon now moves into the number 2. The game of the weekend, Oregon, Ohio State. And Oregon, Ohio State, honestly, 2 evenly matched teams. I think Ohio State is just a little bit better. And the reason why I say that is if you've been paying attention to a lot of these Big Ten teams that are having to go cross countries, there's been some kind of crazy outcomes in some of these games, especially as they go across the country, not playing and kind of have the team that goes across the country kind of has an underwhelming game. So if Oregon goes to Ohio State, does Oregon win? I don't know about that. So to me, that's the only reason why I'd say Ohio. To me, I think Ohio State is just a little bit better than Oregon, and the fact that Oregon only won by 1 point in Eugene kind of makes me think Ohio State. The other thing, and we can go ahead and hit Ohio State, which is now at 4. Ohio State, I've said it before, I am just not the biggest fan of Will Howard. He's just very inconsistent to me. He was inconsistent last year when he kind of played at Kansas State. So, yeah, it just is what it is. That last play of the game, last couple of plays there of the game just really stunk, man. Y'all had it. Y'all were there. Ohio State should have had it, but just kind of just let it slip away there. So that's the only thing I'll say about Oregon and Ohio State. I think both those teams are very competitive to each other, especially, obviously, being a 1-point game. But I think Ohio State's just a little bit better. Just Oregon got the little bit extra nudge from being the home team in that one. Penn State definitely probably should have dropped. That's all I say. They had a pretty crazy comeback against USC all the way out at USC. It's another one of those, going across the country, sleepwalking through the game, but they found a way to come back, especially in the second half, and get the win. A lot of that had to do with the overtime. USC missed their opportunity to get any points. Their field goal kicker when they were kicking a field goal missed the field goal. So it made it really easy for Penn State at that point in time. Don't turn the ball over, get into really good positioning, kick the field goal, and win. And they did exactly that. Field goal, won at Penn State, went home a victor. I in no way thought they are worthy, though, of moving up at all. I actually see Ohio State just be at number 3, Penn State be 4, if you wanted to call it that. It doesn't matter because here in 3 weeks, Penn State, Ohio State are actually going to play each other. So that'll get sorted out. Georgia, they played Mississippi State. Texas has already played Mississippi State. So if you're, taking into context of, hey, Georgia was a much narrower win against Mississippi State than Texas had against Mississippi State. You could say Texas should pseudo beat Georgia, but it doesn't matter. You still got to play the game. That's coming up this next weekend. But Georgia wasn't that impressive against Mississippi State. Is what it is. They handled it, but wasn't impressive. They'll obviously be traveling to Austin this next weekend to take on Texas. That'll be the big one. Game day is going to be there. Miami was off this weekend, so they had to bye. Alabama. My goodness, how the mighty have fallen. Dude, y'all should have lost that game. That's all I'll say. Y'all should have lost that game. It was crazy. The drop kick at the end of the game by South Carolina to get the onside kick was crazy. I think someone mentioned we hadn't seen a drop kick in a really long time, especially in I don't think that situation where you do an onside kick, but it was executed perfectly. It bounced right into one of the Alabama players right before he was about to get it, hit right off his chest, bounced around, hit another player, and then South Carolina was able to get on top of it, gave him a chance. They should have won. All you had to do is get down the field like 25, maybe 30 yards. But Alabama just blitzed them to death and didn't let them get down the field at all. Alabama was able to get away with a victory, 2-point victory against South Carolina at home. There you go. And even the 2-point conversion there before the onside kick, the guy, the receiver that was running near side on the camera, near side, overthrew him. He was wide open there, man. If you just kind of get it more to that sideline, he was wide open. But Alabama got a defender up the field in the quarterback's face, and he just throws it out of the back of the end zone. It was a bummer because, man, that dude was wide open. That would have tied the game. But Alabama, they got to figure out Jalen Milroe and probably some other things. But Jalen Milroe was not looking good in that game. Just was not looking good. I don't know what they got to do, but man, they got to figure out why I just don't know if he doesn't have confidence throwing the ball or what it is. But yeah. They got to figure out what's going on with Jalen Milroe. LSU got a big time W against Ole Miss. They jumped up pretty good, so there you go. LSU, they looked okay. They didn't look like they're really going to be competing for a national title. They haven't really looked that way from what I've been seeing them this year. But yeah, I mean they taking care of what they need to take care of. They're going to have A&M coming up here in a few weeks. So that'll be a big one for both of them. And there you go. And I think they will also have Alabama left on their schedule as well. So, yeah, they're going to get Texas A&M and Alabama back-to-back, and they'll get Oklahoma to finish out the year there for LSU Tigers. That's rough. Iowa State continues to not hugely impress, but not kill themselves. And that's kind of just how they go about doing their things, man. They just kind of don't kill themselves. And when you're not playing like a lot of top tier talent teams, that's all you gotta do. You just don't kill yourself. They do a very good job of that. They've done a very good job of that over the past several years. Head coach there is a big fan of him. Clemson has come to life, looking much better, continuing to roll. They rolled this past weekend. All right, let's move on. Tennessee struggled with Florida. This is why they dropped. They won the game. They struggled with Florida. Florida has looked like one of the possible 3 worst teams in college football this year, along with Florida State. But man, struggling with Florida, that should not be. But they were able to get the W by the end, so they move on. They will be playing Alabama this next week. That'll be a big one as well with Texas and Georgia. I would expect Alabama to finally shake off this past 2 weeks and probably get that W. But Tennessee, they have, over the past 2 weeks, they did not score any points in the first half. And this is supposed to be a very high-profile, prolific offense. And they are looking very exposed right now, especially coming out of that Florida game. Like, why was Florida keeping y'all from out of the end zone at all, in any case? Tennessee better figure it out. Got a big one this week. Notre Dame has come all the way back from that NIU loss. So that's all I got. I'm not really a big fan. I don't really see them competing. But right now, they are sitting at that coveted 12 spot. They need to be up one more, which maybe by the end of the year. They don't really play anybody else pretty much the rest of the year. That NIU loss is just looking so bad. They need to kind of keep steamrolling teams as they play them. But other than that, that's about all you got there. BYU remains undefeated. Looks like BYU and Iowa State, I don't know if they play each other. So it looks like BYU, Iowa State will be probably the 2 main ones here in contention for that Big 12 championship. Looks like they will be in that meetup there. So there you go. BYU, Iowa State looking like they'll be meeting up at the end of the year. Be curious to see if they can both run their schedules. Texas A&M on a bye this week. Don't really need to mention anything. They kind of moved up just because Ole Miss. Get to that in here in a sec. Boise State still is that group of 5, 12 slot in the playoffs. So there you go, Boise State. Dude, running back is making all kinds of noise here. Ashton Genty is crushing life out there in the West Coast and playing early Sunday mornings. It's just absolutely crazy, the things that he's doing out there for Boise State. And everybody used to talk about Oregon. Man, how did you go so close with Boise State? But now that's looking like that is a quality win for Oregon. Obviously, it's a quality loss there for Boise State. But, man, for how close that game was, people are now waking up to how real Boise State is. And it's not like they're going to play anybody with a tough defense to probably stop that run game for the rest of the year. So there you go. Boise State crushing it. Indiana undefeated. As far as Indiana's schedule, this is going to be the most important thing because they will get Nebraska. Nebraska's good. Quality team. It's a quality team. Don't sleep on them, even though they're not ranked. But you got Michigan, pretty good defense. Definitely a decent O-line. Let's see if they found a quarterback now. Obviously, you got Ohio State. I wouldn't expect you to survive that. But Indiana, we'll see if you can make your way through that schedule and shock everybody. It's kind of like the Vanderbilt of, the Big Ten. Kansas State continues to do very well. Avery Johnson, the quarterback there, continuing to do well. Lead his team doing things right. Ole Miss now suffered the second loss. They did go down to that LSU. I forgot that Kentucky loss as well, that shocker that we had like 3 weeks ago. So Ole Miss will also get Georgia coming up here in a few weeks. They will get Oklahoma in 2 weeks. And there you go. That'll probably be the hardest teams they got left coming up. Ole Miss, though, going down. A pretty close one there to LSU. Just kind of surprised that they are not having better offensive success. They have a lot of talent, and this is one of those issues that you get with that transfer portal, right? You're able to bring in talent, but it doesn't mean the talent works well together, right? You got a lot of great parts, but can you build an engine out of those parts? And right now, Ole Miss is kind of sputtering on that topic. Missouri. Oh, that's right. I could totally forgot about this because Missouri went to UMass. Who would have thought about that? Usually, those much smaller programs go to the larger programs, schools or fields or whatever. But anyways, yeah, I mean, they slaughtered UMass. They're going to have Alabama coming up here in 2 weeks. Other than that, they'll have some other tough teams in there. Oklahoma, South Carolina's been playing some teams tough recently. Arkansas, probably can't sleep on them because they how good their defense was against Tennessee. So Missouri probably still climb up into the top 10 if they can knock off Alabama and stuff like that. But I wouldn't bet on it. Pittsburgh undefeated, started to make some noise for how much they've been undefeated. And they haven't really played anybody. They did beat Cal, and this is like another one of those, Cal going from West Coast to East Coast. I thought Cal was going to win the game, but that's just another one of those weird going all the way across the country things. A lot of these college kids, they're not used to that. That might be not really much of an issue. Maybe in the next couple of years, as maybe some of these programs figure out how to better travel those long trips. But yeah, they did take care of Cal. I didn't really see much of this game at all, other than not just some of the highlights. But they're going to get SMU coming up here in 3 weeks. And they will also then get Clemson. So those will be a couple of big ones in Louisville. Obviously, Louisville's not a bad team either. So there you go, Pitt. Looking pretty good. SMU, just talking about them with Pitt here in a couple of weeks. SMU, they got the one loss. They're still doing pretty good. They're still in contention for quite a bit of stuff over there in the ACC. It's kind of weird to say that the SMU Mustangs are in the ACC. Yes, they are. So they could very much win the ACC. They do have one loss to BYU by 3 points. So if they hang in there, it's not like they have a hard ACC schedule, and they did just get that win last weekend, not this past weekend, but the weekend before against Louisville. They were off this weekend, and they will have Pitt come up here in 3 weeks. And that's really it. If they can manage maybe some other kind of tough challenges, maybe Duke. So, yeah. Other than that, SMU was off, but they could definitely be in contention for that ACC. Illinois. I'm always excited to see Illinois and Indiana just kind of come up and surprise people. Illinois did wind up playing Purdue, and they will then get Michigan this next weekend. So Purdue, that game was crazy. I didn't really think that was going to happen. I didn't see any of it, but man, I saw that score by the end. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on over there? I definitely did not see the over getting taken out that easily. But Illinois looking like they could be somewhat disruptive there in that Big Ten. Army and Navy. I'm going to talk about Army and Navy, and then I'll talk about Michigan. So Army and Navy, the service academies, undefeated. A lot of people are very much paying attention to these two as, well, if they both wind up going undefeated and make it to the end of the year, they play each other after the College Football Playoff Committee meets for the 12-team seeding, the final one, the official one. And so we could have a scenario of, what if we put in Army or Navy, and how do you pick one or the other when they haven't played each other yet? It would be very interesting how that would play out. And I would imagine probably coming out of this year, we would see the committee probably have some kind of technical rule about this Army Navy possible scenario, just because we've talked about in college football before of that'd be a crazy scenario that happens, and then it winds up not happening that year, and then like a couple of years later it's happened. So I could see them actually making a case of setting in a particular petition or rule of, hey, we'll put in the 12th spot whoever wins the Army Navy game. So I think it's like a week later after the committee has the 12 team kind of meet up. Anyways, that is Army Navy. Michigan, they moved kind of nowhere, just kind of staying flat. I don't even know if they played. Did they play? They did not play. Yeah, that was last weekend. So they will get Illinois this next weekend. Then they will get Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State that is a rough stretch, Michigan. Rough stretch. I don't think y'all be ranking in the top 25 at the end of the year there, Michigan. That's going to be brutal. I guess the good thing is you get Oregon at home. Yeah, you'll get Oregon at home, but then you got to go to the shoe at Ohio State. Anyways, Oregon's probably still going to come in and win, so not like it even matters. So there you go. That is a rundown of the top 25.